In September 1994, over 60 children at a school in Zimbabwe reported something that most scientists say should be impossible. They claimed to have seen a UFO land and strange beings emerge during their morning recess break. But here's what's truly extraordinary. 30 years later, these witnesses still stand by their stories with remarkable consistency. Hey everyone, and welcome aboard ARNIE'S Brain Train, where today I'm going to be journeying into one of the most compelling mass sightings in UFO history. I'm Alex Arnold, and whether you're a skeptic or a believer, this is a mystery that will challenge your perception of reality. What made this case so interesting to me isn't just what these children claim to have seen, but how their testimonies have remained consistent for 3 decades, despite having nothing to gain and potentially much to lose by maintaining their accounts. Now, this is definitely a different style of video and a different topic of conversation than we usually cover here. But as always on this channel, I'm not here to tell you what to believe. I'm just here to examine the evidence, explore multiple perspectives, and let you draw your own conclusions. All of my sources are listed in the description below for anyone that wants to dig deeper. So get comfortable, open your mind, and join me as we investigate. What did they really see at the Ariel school that day? Ariel School sits in Rua, a small community about 20 kilometers east of Harare, Zimbabwe's capital. To understand this case properly, we need to appreciate the context of Zimbabwe in 1994. This was a relatively isolated nation, still finding its footing after gaining independence from British colonial rule. There was limited internet access, no smartphones, and no social media. The Ariel School itself primarily served middle and upper class families, with a student body that was predominantly white but had some racial diversity. On Friday, September 16, 1994, as was typical, the teachers gathered for their weekly staff meeting, leaving over 60 children between ages 6 and 12 in the schoolyard for morning break. The weather was clear and sunny, a completely ordinary day, until it wasn't. According to dozens of consistent testimonies, the children first noticed something strange in the sky, a silvery object that moved in ways that defied conventional aircraft capabilities. Several reported that at least one craft descended and appeared to land in the brush area just beyond the school grounds. The craft was typically described as round or disc-shaped, metallic with lights visible around its perimeter. But what makes this case truly out of this world is what happened next. Multiple children reported seeing small beings exit the craft. Their descriptions were remarkably consistent. Entities approximately 3 to 4 feet tall, with very thin bodies, disproportionately large heads, and enormous black eyes that didn't have whites like human eyes. Many described them wearing tight-fitting black suits or outfits. One witness states, "I remember being frozen in place. These weren't people like I'd ever seen. They moved strangely, almost floating. And the eyes, they were so big and so black. I can still see them when I close my eyes at night." Many of these children also reported more than visual contact. Multiple witnesses described receiving what they perceived as telepathic messages from these beings. One child later stated, "It communicated with me, but not with words. It put thoughts directly into my head about technology and how humans are damaging the environment." As a child in Zimbabwe in 1994, environmental issues weren't something I knew or cared about. We didn't have that kind of education then. This environmental message is a fascinating aspect of the case, as environmental consciousness was not widely taught to children in Zimbabwe at that time. When the teachers emerged from their meeting, they found dozens of excited and frightened children all trying to tell remarkably similar stories. The teachers' initial reactions ranged from dismissive to concerned. Some thought it was mass hysteria or an elaborate game. Others were troubled by the obvious emotional impact on the children. The school headmaster had the children draw what they had seen. When these drawings were collected, they showed striking similarities despite being created independently. The consistency across different age groups from different classrooms who weren't close friends makes a coordinated hoax seem unlikely. News of this incident quickly spread beyond the school, and within days, it would attract the attention of serious researchers. This case might have remained nothing more than a local curiosity, if not for the arrival of Dr. John E. Mack, a Harvard psychiatrist and a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. Dr. Mack was no ordinary researcher. He was a respected professor at Harvard Medical School who had recently published a controversial book on alleged alien encounters. It's important to note that Mack had nothing to gain by his involvement and potentially much to lose professionally by treating these accounts seriously. Harvard University later launched an unprecedented inquiry into his work, the only such investigation of a tenured professor not accused of ethics violations or academic fraud. Dr. Mack and his colleague Dominique Kalomanopoulos conducted their investigation with methodological rigor. Children were interviewed individually to prevent cross-contamination of memories. They were asked open-ended questions rather than leading ones. These interviews were recorded on video, preserving this valuable primary evidence. By themselves, each of these accounts are easy to take as just a child's imagination. But what makes these interviews so compelling is their consistency. Without prompting, children from different classes and different age groups and different social circles describe strikingly similar beings and experiences. Here's my main list of aspects that make this case so difficult to dismiss. Number 1, the number of witnesses. Over 60 children reported the same basic event. Number 2, consistency across accounts. The core details remained remarkably similar. Number 3, individual interviews. Children were questioned separately but gave similar accounts. Number 4, the lack of incentive. The children gained nothing from their claims and often faced ridicule. Number 5, the cultural context. The descriptions didn't match local folklore or popular media. Number 6, corroborating reports. Local radio had reported unusual aerial phenomena the previous night. Number 7, professional investigation, conducted by qualified researchers using sound methodology. And number 8, emotional authenticity. The children displayed genuine emotion in interviews. Really quickly, I want to touch on number 6, the credibility from local media archives. The night before the school incident, local radio had reported UFO sightings in the area. Several adults in the Rua area reported seeing unusual lights in the sky in the days leading up to the school sighting. Before we continue, let's just take a moment and understand why cases like this are so valuable, regardless of what you believe happened. These mass witness accounts offer rare insights into how humans process extraordinary experiences, how memories form and persist, and how institutions respond to reports that challenge conventional understanding. Whether you're interested in psychology, sociology, or the possibility of extraterrestrial contact, this case offers fascinating data points for consideration. Let's talk about why the Ariel school case sticks in people's brains so much. The long-term consistency of the witnesses. The 2022 documentary Ariel Phenomenon tracked down many of the original witnesses, now adults with careers, families, and established lives. One of the witnesses says, "I'm a banker now. I have a family, a mortgage, responsibilities. I have nothing to gain and potentially my professional reputation to lose by continuing to talk about this. But it happened. I can't deny my own experience just because it makes others uncomfortable." Despite the passage of nearly 3 decades, these witnesses maintain remarkably consistent accounts. This persistence contradicts what memory experts would typically expect. According to psychological research, memories typically become less detailed and more conforming to conventional narratives over time. Children especially tend to reinterpret unusual experiences through more socially acceptable frameworks as they mature. The fact that these witnesses have maintained the same core details for 30 years, often despite social pressure to recant or reinterpret, is psychologically significant. Dr. Susan Clancy, a Harvard psychologist who studies memories of anomalous experiences, notes that false memories typically incorporate new details over time and tend to align more closely with cultural narratives as they're retold. The Ariel School witnesses show a remarkable lack of this kind of memory evolution. For many of these witnesses, this childhood experience profoundly shaped their lives. Some report that it influenced their career choices, leading them to fields like environmental science, psychology, or astronomy. Others describe a lifelong spiritual impact, changing how they view humanity's place in the cosmos. Unfortunately, not all impacts have been positive. Many describe years of ridicule, difficulty discussing the experience with family members, and even professional consequences when their connection to the case became known. Another witness states, "For years I tried to forget it, tried to convince myself it was a dream or something I imagined. It would have been easier that way. But I know what I saw, and finding out years later that dozens of other kids saw the same thing, kids I barely knew, how do you explain that away?" The Ariel School case is uniquely well documented among UFO incidents. We have contemporary video interviews conducted within days, physical drawings made by the children at the time, multiple independent investigations, follow-up interviews spanning decades, and local news reports from the period. All of this documentation allows us to analyze the case with a depth that's rare in this field. So now, being intellectually honest with ourselves, the scientific method demands that we consider all possible explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. So, if we set aside the extraterrestrial hypothesis, what might explain what happened at Ariel School? One leading explanation is mass suggestion, sometimes called mass psychogenic illness or historically mass hysteria. This phenomenon involves the spread of similar symptoms or beliefs within a group, often triggered by stress or unusual circumstances. Famous examples include the dancing plague of 1518, where hundreds of people danced uncontrollably for days, and the 2011-2012 Leroy, New York case, where teenage girls developed identical tic-like movements. Psychologists propose that perhaps one child's misperception or imagination spread rapidly through the playground, with children reinforcing each other's beliefs until they develop shared false memories of an extraordinary event. Mass suggestion is a documented psychological phenomenon that can create shared experiences across groups. However, the Ariel School case presents several challenges for this explanation. Typically, mass suggestion involves physical symptoms or simple shared beliefs, not complex, detailed visual hallucinations with narrative elements that remain consistent when witnesses are separated. There are several difficulties with the mass suggestion hypothesis. Number one, the interviews were conducted individually, reducing peer influence. Number two, children from different age groups and social circles reported similar details. Number three, the accounts have remained consistent over decades, unlike most cases of mass suggestion. Number four, the specific content doesn't align with pre-existing cultural narratives in Zimbabwe at that time. And number five, the detailed visual nature of the accounts differs from typical mass hysteria. Another possibility is that the children saw something real but ordinary that was misinterpreted as extraordinary. Perhaps unusual atmospheric phenomena, wildlife, or humans in unfamiliar clothing or gear were perceived as otherworldly in the excitement of the moment. Skeptical researchers have suggested possibilities including a helicopter or unusual aircraft, local workers wearing protective equipment, people with medical conditions that affected their appearance, or elaborate pranks by older students or locals. The challenge for these explanations is accounting for the specific and consistent details across multiple witnesses. If it were simply a case of misidentification, we would expect more variation in the reports, with different children interpreting the ambiguous stimulus in different ways. Memory researchers know that human recall is malleable, not like a video recording. Memories can be influenced by suggestion, questioning techniques, and exposure to others' accounts. Some psychologists suggest that perhaps something mundane occurred, but post-event discussions and questioning led children to believe that they had experienced something extraordinary. The power of suggestion combined with leading questions could potentially create false memories. However, once again, this explanation faces significant challenges. The initial interviews were conducted relatively soon after the event. Dr. Mack used open-ended rather than leading questions. The consistency across children who were interviewed separately is difficult to explain, and the memories have remained stable over decades, which is unusual for false memories. Could the entire incident have been a coordinated deception? For this explanation to work, we would need to account for how 60-plus children from different classes coordinated their stories, why they maintained this fabrication for decades despite no apparent benefit, how they produced such convincing emotional reactions in the original interviews, and why school officials who initially dismissed the accounts would participate. Most large-scale hoaxes eventually collapse as participants admit the truth or accounts begin to contradict each other. The Ariel school case has shown remarkable resilience in this regard. The Zimbabwe school sighting, while extraordinary, isn't actually isolated. Several similar cases involving multiple child witnesses have been documented around the world. Understanding this helps us see why researchers take these school cases so seriously. So let's explore how this case fits into a larger global pattern. In 1977, at Broadhaven Primary School in Wales, 16 children reported seeing a silver craft and a figure in a silver suit during their afternoon break. As with the Zimbabwe case 17 years later, the children were asked to draw what they had seen independently and produce remarkably similar illustrations. David Davies, then headmaster at the school, told BBC Wales in 2015, "I interviewed the children individually and made them draw what they had seen. The drawings were similar, but not identical, which made me think that they had not collaborated. Like the Zimbabwe witnesses, these Welsh children have maintained their accounts into adulthood." In 1966, over 200 people, mostly students, at Westall High School in Melbourne, Australia, reportedly witnessed a silver disc-shaped object descend into a nearby field, hover, then rapidly ascend. While this case didn't include reports of beings, it shares key similarities with the Zimbabwe case. School setting, multiple child witnesses, daytime setting, consistent descriptions of a metallic craft, and institutional discouragement of discussion. What's particularly interesting about the Westall case is the apparent institutional response. Students reported being told by authorities not to discuss what they had seen, and some witnesses claim that men in suits, presumed to be government officials, came to the school shortly after the incident. Other notable school cases include the Crestview Elementary School in 1967. In Miami, Florida, students reported a disc-shaped craft hovering over their school, with some adult staff members corroborating their accounts. Voronezh, Russia, 1989. Multiple school children reported seeing a spherical object land in a park near their school and tall beings emerge. Similar to Zimbabwe, they produced consistent drawings of what they'd observed. Hillsdale, Michigan, 1966. 87 college students reported seeing strange lights maneuvering over a swamp near their dorms. The case was investigated by Dr. J. Allen Hynek for Project Blue Book. When examined collectively, several patterns emerge. Number 1, school settings are disproportionately represented in mass sightings cases. Number 2, children as primary witnesses is a recurring element. Number 3, silver or metallic craft are consistently described. Number 4, the sightings often occur during daytime, typically during breaks. Number 5, institutional responses often involve discouraging discussion. Number 6, witnesses maintain their accounts over decades, despite social pressure. And number 7, the cases span different decades and continents, yet share remarkable similarities. Skeptics suggest that schools might be settings for mass suggestion events precisely because children are potentially more suggestible. Proponents of the extraterrestrial hypothesis propose that schools might be deliberately targeted for contact, perhaps because children are more open to extraordinary experiences, or because they represent humanity's future. Whatever your interpretation is, the global pattern of school-centered UFO events represents a documented phenomenon worthy of serious investigation. Whether or not these children encountered extraterrestrial beings, I don't know. But the Ariel school case and similar incidents have profound psychological and cultural significance. Children process unusual perceptions differently than adults. Their brains are still developing the frameworks that will become their adult understanding of what's possible and impossible. They have fewer preconceptions about what should exist, but also less context for interpreting ambiguous stimuli. Dr. Thomas Bullard's comparative analysis of encounter reports notes that children's accounts tend to lack the cultural framing that adults impose on unusual experiences. Where adults might immediately jump to explanations like, "It must have been a military craft," or "I must have been seeing things," children often report simply what they perceived without immediate interpretation. What makes children's testimony interesting is precisely its directness, explains Dr. Susan Clancy. Children haven't fully internalized cultural scripts about what's possible or impossible, so they often report perceptions more directly, with less filtering. UFO sightings and alleged alien encounters have been a significant cultural phenomenon since the mid-20th century. Initially treated largely as fringe beliefs, these reports have gradually gained more serious consideration both in popular culture and more recently in official government investigations. In recent years, government agencies have become much more open about investigating unidentified aerial phenomenon, UAP. The U.S. Department of Defense has acknowledged the reality of unexplained aerial encounters by military personnel and has established formal programs to investigate them. While these official investigations are primarily concerned with potential security threats rather than extraterrestrial hypotheses, they represent a significant shift in how these phenomena are treated by institutions that previously dismissed them entirely. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of these cases is the human impact on the witnesses themselves. Whether or not they encountered non-human intelligence, these individuals have had to integrate extraordinary perceptions into their lives and their worldviews. Many witnesses across these various school cases reported similar challenges: difficulty being taken seriously, reluctance to discuss their experience publicly, and the struggle to reconcile what they believe they experienced with conventional understanding of reality. The study of anomalous experiences raises important ethical considerations. How do we investigate extraordinary claims while respecting witnesses and maintaining scientific rigor? Dr. Mack's approach to the Ariel school case offers one model: taking witnesses' accounts seriously while maintaining methodological standards. What happened at Ariel School in Rua, Zimbabwe on September 16, 1994 remains one of the most interesting mass sighting cases in UFO research. 3 decades later, the witnesses, now adults with careers and families, continue to stand by their accounts. This case by itself is remarkable because of the number of witnesses, over 60 children plus additional adults in the community, the consistency of their accounts, both across different children and across decades, the quality of the investigation, with methodologically sound interviews documented on video, and the lack of obvious conventional explanations that fully account for the evidence. Similar cases from around the world suggest a pattern that deserves serious inquiry, regardless of whether the explanation involves extraterrestrial visitors or complex psychological phenomena. When 60 children tell the same story for 30 years, when similar accounts emerge across continents for decades, and when conventional explanations fall short, what we're left with is a mystery that challenges our understanding of reality and perception. Perhaps what these cases teach us most of all is humility in the face of the unknown. The most scientific approach isn't to dismiss accounts that challenge our understanding, but to investigate them thoroughly while maintaining an open mind to all possibilities. And here's my 2 cents. In a universe as vast and as ancient as ours, the truly unlikely outcome would be that we truly are alone in the universe. Well, everybody, that's all for today's journey on ARNIE'S Brain Train. If you found this exploration fascinating, remember to hit subscribe and that notification bell so you never miss an episode. All sources are linked in the description below if you want to continue your own investigation. What do you think happened at the aerial school that day in 1994? Do you believe the children encountered something truly extraordinary? Or do you think that there's a conventional explanation that we haven't fully considered? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've ever experienced something unexplainable yourself, or if there's another mysterious case you'd like me to explore in a future episode, let me know. Your curiosity fuels our journey together on ARNIE'S Brain Train. Once again, thanks for watching, and remember, the world isn't always this simple, but it's always this interesting. See you guys next time. Bye.